Hello everybody, here we are today kicking off season previews, and it feels like an absolute lifetime since we did our last season previews. This year we are kicking it off with the Anaheim Ducks. Now before we start, please make sure to subscribe if you're new to me or the channel. That being said, let's get on into it. So, of course, Anaheim is coming off of a very tough year last season where I feel like they had more hopes to be better and possibly even be a playoff hopeful. They had a really good first half of the season prior. Everything fell apart, and then it seems like it transitioned into all of last season. They had two 10-plus loss streaks on the year. One of them was like 13 games. They ended up finishing with the worst record in the NHL. Didn't end up getting the first pick, but you know, that's all stuff we already probably know about at this point. So what are some storylines to talk about for this upcoming season for this version of the Ducks? So the first one is, can the new guys help? And by that I mean the two big names in free agency that they got, of course, being Alex Killorn and Radko Gudas. Now with these guys, you're looking at them and they're not the biggest of names. With Killorn, he's a guy that is coming off of a really big year for him, a career year with 64 points, but a guy that has appeared in multiple Stanley Cups with the Tampa Bay Lightning, winning two of those for the Bullets, and is a player that has consistently the past 2 years been able to get over 55 points, or at least 50 points. For him, I'm not exactly sure what you're expecting. I don't think he's a guy that moves the needle so much for them that he is a true game changer. However, I will say this, a guy that John Cooper has been able to trust the past few years. And really, for the course of his career, a couple of years ago, he got like almost 19 minutes per night. Slipped back down a little bit this season, but still a big year for him as he finished with nearly 65 points and is a guy that is with the team for the next 4 years with that extension he got. I think for him, just being able to crack 50 points on the season and then being able to help these younger guys, considering you have been to multiple Stanley Cups, to say, hey, this is how it's done. This is an organization that is in need of some change, and I'm here to hopefully help change the culture a little bit and show you the way. As of course, he was with a team in Tampa Bay that still has some hopes of winning a Stanley Cup. As for Gudas, he is there to protect the young guys. Now, Gudas is a guy that will probably go out there and just lay a bunch of hits because that's kind of what he does. If he didn't finish first in the league in hits last season, he certainly has before, if I'm not mistaken. I also will say that he's probably not going to score a lot of points for you. He's not going to get a lot of goals over the past 6 seasons. He has 15 goals on 1,372 shots for a shooting percentage of just 2.3%, well below league average. Again, this is going to be one of those guys that has a more physical game and is a guy that you're hoping protects the younger players. Do I think this deal makes sense? I've said before I don't, but good for him for getting the money and good for the Ducks for hopefully being able to protect their youngsters. All in all, though, this is not a free agent group that I say just blows me away, but with Killorn, I'm hoping that he is able to, especially in the first year, get a lot of playing time and hopefully get things for the forward group going in the right direction, as a lot of their prospects are really focused on the blue line. Number 2, is there going to be tension between Anaheim and John Gibson, possibly involving a trade? So John Gibson is a guy that's played with the Ducks. This is going on his 10th year. Now, granted, his inaugural year where he played 2 games for them, that 2013-14 season, wasn't all the time, but he has been a reliable, or at least a consistent starter in the terms that Anaheim has thrown him out there a lot. Part of that is because he got a big contract, and at the time he was playing well, but the past 4 years, I'll leave it up here, he clearly has not. Now, what I will say is this team has been far from perfect in recent memory, but I think things are really just awkward right now for the 30-year-old because he, A, doesn't fit their timeline, and then B, it seems like we're hearing reports that he wants a trade or he doesn't want to trade. I don't exactly know what's going on here. He is saying that he doesn't, or at least that he's saying that he didn't tell Anaheim that he's not going to play his final game with the Ducks, and just say that you have to trade me, according to Frank Saravalli, Daily Faceoff. That was what was reportedly said, but again, there's so much back and forth between them and Gibson's agent. I don't know what's going to be made out of this. What I will say is he still has 4 years left on his deal, and like I showed you, those numbers over the past 4 years are not great, so it kind of makes you wonder if he does demand a trade, or if Anaheim says, you know, he really doesn't fit our timeline, things are not going well, we would like to move on from him. How do you move this deal? I don't think it's that hard, considering we've seen some bigger moves made for bigger contracts, but who would want him, and then what would you expect in a return? Because again, I think you run the risk of possibly not asking for enough. In my opinion is this: goalie is a position where it really does rely on what team you go to, and that could definitely change how well a goalie plays. If you are a forward line, you might have bad forwards, and that's okay because you might have somebody that could help you out. Maybe if you are a guy that thrives a little bit with somebody that's more of a playmaker, that's okay because they could set you up and they could get a playmaker. If you are a goalie and you have a team that just allows a bunch of chances, let's say that the defenseman pinch in a little bit too much, the forwards end up just having a lot of bad turnovers, or your guys are just really ineffective at getting the puck out of their own end. Whatever the case may be, if there are a lot of shots going your way, that is a problem. However, if you're on a team that is much better defensively and they're more sound, there's more of a structured system instead of a free-flowing aspect of the game, then you very well could succeed. And I think my biggest concern for the Ducks is, let's say they trade Gibson and maybe he isn't great for 4 years, but maybe the first 2 years of where he's at in a trade, he ends up looking good, and Anaheim's like, man, this return's not great, wish we would have done better. And I think that's going to be interesting to see. But again, I also will say, I think Gibson wants out, but I don't think he's going to make it crazy dramatic, but we will see. And then finally, for one of the storylines here for Anaheim is, will their enticing blue line prospects get some playing time this season? Of course, I'm talking about guys like Pavel Mintyukov and then Owen Zellweger. Now, these two are guys that are viewed as a big part of the franchise going forward. Mintyukov was drafted with the 10th overall pick in the 2022 draft, if I'm not mistaken. Zellweger was drafted in the 2021 draft. I might have flip-flopped those. Either way, these are both very young defensemen that are part of the idea, at least, for what the future of the Ducks could be. And for Mintyukov, he is a player that, while hockey prospecting doesn't seem as a true star, they do feel that he is a guy projected to probably play at least 200 games in the NHL, not the end-all be-all there. And he is a player that I think has a lot of offensive potential because of the shots he's taking. He will take shots from wherever on the ice, that's good, but also I think he is a player that understands how to create space for himself and how he maybe not be the fastest guy in the league, but is a guy that will be able to have a few moves to be able to deke out defenders and then set up that shot that I think is going to be something that could be an asset for him in Anaheim. And you would always love a goal scorer from the blue line. As for Zellweger, he is a player that I think I just love the ability for him to process things so quickly. You look at where he shoots the puck, how he shoots the puck, how he gets up the ice and just really creates havoc. To have a defenseman that could possibly do that for you with his edge work and everything that he's got going for him is going to be incredible, because again, if he is able to use that speed and if he is able to create so many mismatches and breakaways, you really could have almost like a fourth forward out there on the ice for this team. And I think that is just so enticing, and this is going to be so fun to see if they do get time. Now, I will say this. They're both young. I think according to hockey prospects or elite prospects, they're both 19. One might be 20. Regardless, either way I'm looking at this. And while I acknowledge that they do have some impressive stats in the OHL and the WHL, my biggest thing is, where will they be playing this season? I got to be honest, probably in some form of a minor hockey system or a semi-professional system, whatever you want to call it. Will it be the AHL? That is a really good question to ask, because again, the AHL has not seen either of them appear in the league as far as I know. I couldn't find anything online. And again, with these guys being so young, defensemen, you like to usually develop them a little bit longer, unless they're just some stud guy that you take in a top 4, top 5 pick. And for these guys, while they do have a lot of talent, you don't want to rush them onto a team that is losing 13 games in a row like they were last year. But I will say this with these two, with the talent that we have seen, or at least what they are projected to be, if Anaheim has some games to play with around maybe the All-Star break, or if they are, going to move some guys out from the blue line, or if they aren't in contention by the end of the year, I do think we'll get to see these guys get some games, even if it's not a lot. So look out for that if you're a Ducks fan. So overall, what am I thinking for Anaheim? Well, they really are in a weird spot as a team where they have a lot of these guys that they've drafted they're excited about, but they might not be there just yet. And from what I'm seeing from this team at the moment, I just don't see a lot of teams or a lot of wins coming their way this upcoming season. You look at this group, and I think the goalie situation is really going to be concerning. If Gibson struggles again, he's probably going to be traded, and if he succeeds, he's probably going to be traded. So again, you're losing your starting goalie probably either this year or next year. I really don't know when it'll happen, but I do think something will probably be done there, and I don't know exactly if they're in a spot where they've got everything set up in net. And on top of that, I'm not in love with their third line. You're seeing some guys at a were possibly good at one point. I'm not saying they're terrible now, but maybe they aren't as good as some people think of them as, and that is okay if you are not looking to take a step forward. And again, I really don't think Anaheim is. The blue line has some question marks, and special teams, especially the power play, which was frustrating to watch if you were an Anaheim fan or an NHL fan in general that paid attention to it. Special teams with the power play being that primary concern. You cannot have a power play go for 15% or whatever it was and hope to be a playoff team unless you are sound in a lot of other areas, which I don't think this team is. The division isn't bad, and I just don't see them being there yet. However, this team is not really in win now mode, in my opinion, and after they slid back down to earth last season, where, wow, that was brutal, they are still a team that I really am excited about because of those pieces for the future. And I think really at this point, it is watching the young guys that are already there, see how they develop. I would feel like for any Ducks fan, that's really what this is about, as well as paying attention to the AHL, the CHL, professional leagues over in Europe, paying attention to just really any of those prospects and seeing how they're doing will be big. I want to see how things will go because a lot of their top prospects are more of their defensemen. Will this forward group be able to get worked out for the guys that they have? Of course, they obviously had the second overall pick, so we'll see what happens there. But this is a team that I will say has some things that you should watch out for, but don't expect them to do a whole lot this year, which is basically what I've said. But anyway, what are your thoughts for Anaheim for this upcoming season? Leave them down below in the comments. Also, please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. Everybody stay safe. Have a great night. And you can love all right. Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.